Hi, and welcome to an episode of Careers and Coffee. So, I'm not Kaylee, that's who you were expecting. So, I'm normally in the background doing what she is doing today, and unfortunately, she has a bit of a poorly chest. So, you're going to have to listen to me droll on and her do all the tech side. So, please make sure you send in loads of questions for our brilliant guest so that it just keeps her busy and not bored going on in the background. So, today we have Ian Cooper. He works with Speakers for Schools. For most schools and for quite a lot of pupils, you know what that is because you come and do virtual work experience with them. So Ian, I have to remember what his title is. So Ian is the head of engagement for East Midlands and East Anglia. So he covers our area. And I'd like to welcome you on. Hi,
Thanks.
Ian.
How are you doing?
I'm all right. How about yourself?
Yeah, very good, thanks. It's not raining, but we're all good. We're all
I'm
good.
pleased. I've got drizzle, so I've clearly got the rain, and you've not got the rain. So yeah, can you just tell us a little bit about what actually the head of engagement means? Because that could mean anything.
That's a good question, and most people kind of don't know what it means, and I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. So essentially, my role is to manage my team. I have a team of myself and 5 others. So within that team, it's managing 2 regional engagement managers. So it's their role to work with local businesses in the area to produce meaningful work experience opportunities, which are predominantly virtual. I have an education relationship manager who's quite new to the role. So it's her role to work with schools and colleges across the East Midlands and East Anglia. I have a delivery partner. So the delivery partner's role is to work on the tech side of things. So when we work with companies, when we work with schools and students, everything goes as smoothly as it can do. And finally, I have a regional fundraising manager who started 2 weeks ago. So my role, apart from managing that team of 5, is to essentially work with larger businesses and larger accounts across the East Midlands and East Anglia. And essentially what that means is allowing those companies to give back to young people and provide young people no matter where they are. So it could be anywhere from Lowestoft to Sudbury to Ipswich, to Needham Market, with fantastic opportunities that you might not necessarily have available to you at your local school or college. 20% of it is working with schools and colleges to educate them on what we do and how we can impact to young people's curriculums.
So what exactly is it that Speakers for Schools do?
That's a really good question. It's a how long's a piece of string question. So essentially, we are, as a charity, we are 11 years old now. And we have 3 main programs. So program number 1 is our inspiration side of things. And that's where Speakers for Schools comes from. So we were founded in 2010 by Robert Peston. And essentially our aim is to wipe out educational inequality by giving you guys as students and teachers to a degree access to the fantastic networks that we have. So within our...
I was just going to jump in. Can you explain what educational inequality is, what you mean by that? Just
yeah,
I get it, but their viewers might not.
Yeah, good, very good point. So educational inequality means you might go to a comprehensive school or a college, but it's in a really small rural town. Compare that to maybe a leafy suburb comprehensive. So within that leafy suburb comprehensive, you might be on the outskirts of a town or a city, and you might have, within that area, you might have loads of different industries. It might be quite an affluent area. The employment rate might be high. Compare that to a small rural town or an inner city or an inner town school or college or a coastal town where your opportunities, purely because where you live, won't be as good as someone that lives near a big city or a big town. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. All right. So that's program 1, about kind of wiping out that inequality in your access. What's program 2?
That's your broader thing. So wiping out inequality is your broader thing. So program 1 is inspiration. So that's where schools and colleges can work with us to request speakers. So our network is 1,700 strong, and it ranges from anyone from, look, I'm sporty, so I'm going to use a sport example, from Christian Horner, who's a team principal for Red Bull, to, I'll always use this example because I think it's brilliant, to Danny from McFly. Hopefully people have heard of McFly, so it'll make me feel super old.
It's a little old. It's all right, but I think they still know who they are.
It's a good one for me. They're still performing, right? They're still performing. So a school and college can apply for a speaker in a particular field. So if they are lucky enough to get that speaker, the speaker will either come along or do it virtually, and it will be a couple of hours on their career and what they've done. The second part of inspiration is our virtual broadcasts. So virtual broadcast, very similar, Josie, to what we're doing now. So we'd have someone, and it's really varied the type of people we have. They come on and do like a 40-minute to an hour and 20-minute. I would probably call it a vodcast. So it would be again, anyone could log in. So you don't need to be attached to Speakers of Schools to log in.
Yeah.
You can log in and listen to their career. So again, I'm going to use a music example. We've had Will Young on there. Sports-wise, we've had Gareth Southgate, but we've had such a varied individuals, from the CEO of the Bank of England to the director of the National College of Nursing, to blockchain, to Facebook, to people that have got sporting companies. So it's really varied in terms of lots of different industries, but at the same time, it's really diverse in people's stories. So that's the first part. The second part is experience, and essentially experience is providing you guys out there in schools and colleges across East Midlands and East Anglia with virtual work experience opportunities. They can be anything from a 2-hour session to a 1-day insight day to a 3 to 5 day placement. Now, we work with businesses that are global, so PwC, Santander, the Army, the RAF, but all the way down to small and medium-sized businesses. So what we want to do is to give you guys a real good idea of what's out there, and also for you guys to realise that you shouldn't really hamstring yourself in terms of, I really want to do that career. It's realizing that you have a really key skill set that can work across and can transcend industries. So for example, it's demystifying industries. So construction, people have their stereotypes around construction. It's showing there's lots of different roles within those. And that's good for companies because staff, they get to give back. It's part of what's called their community and social responsibility. So companies, larger companies, will have a part of their company that they want to work on leaving a legacy in that local community. They will have diversity and inclusion targets, and it will help them in terms of recruitment, and it'll also help you guys see what's out there. The final part is Youth Card. So Youth Card is our free app. So it's available to all young people aged 11 to 25. It went live nationally in July, and the 3 sides to that are our work experience opportunities that are available. It's also access perks. So we work with companies. It can be anything from a prospectus to a podcast to a vodcast to a useful presentation that may benefit you guys as students. And the final part is our discounts. So we work with National Express and Merlin Entertainment in order to provide discounts for students. And they may or may not be incremental. So if you're on free school meals, for example, a discount may go from 5% to 10%. So that's Speakers of Schools, probably in a little bit more convoluted way than you're expecting.
No. I know that Speakers of Schools has lots and lots of different things. So let's go back to you. So obviously, we often talk about this, that the jobs we are looking at now didn't exist, 10, 15 years ago, and that the jobs that the kids are going to be doing that are currently on our virtual work experience programs don't exist. Most of the jobs don't exist that they're going to be doing. So for you, this job didn't exist. Your role didn't exist, let's think, even 5 years ago. So how did you end up doing this role? How did you actually get here?
It's a really good question. I'll try not to go too far. I mean, first things first, I just want to get this out there. So my GCSEs were reasonable. A-levels were a complete disaster. So just so you were aware, I got 2 Ds and 2 Us for my A-level. Absolute disaster. And I've also got a 3rd class degree, which I was ashamed of for a good 10, 12 years. But it's really important for, I think, your viewers to realise that the piece of paper you get at 16, 18, 21 does not define you, and you should never let it define you. But always look to move forward from that and look at things in a very positive growth mindset. But I'll come into that later. So my career path, how did I get there? It's a really good question. Left university at 21, wanting to be a teacher. Actually, no, that's a lie. I didn't want to be a teacher. My mum was a teacher, and everybody said I love to chat and I like coaching, so I'd go into teaching. So obviously, if my mum was a teacher, there was no chance I'd be a teacher. So knew I wanted to go into sport. So I worked at a leisure centre for a while, did lifeguarding, gym instructing, personal training, you name it, I probably did it. So I wanted a career in sport, but I had honestly no idea what I wanted to do. From there, I spent 3 years doing various part-time and full-time jobs, all within sport, because I just knew I loved sport and I wanted to be in sport, and I was at that period in my life. Then finally, when I was 24, 25, got into teaching. So I started working with harder to reach students, did my teaching qualification. Then from there, worked in a college, worked in a couple of colleges, realised I liked teaching, but I wanted to make more of a bigger impact for me. And what that meant is, how can I help more people? So then I went into educational management, both working with elite sports clubs. So I went up to Loughborough College and helped manage some staff. So essentially it was my role to be in charge of a team of staff. So I'd recruit staff, make sure they were doing their job correctly, lesson observations, things like that, in terms of lots of elite sports clubs, which was fantastic. From there, I went on to private training provider. So we've worked with clubs in Needham Market, Ipswich, Lowestoft. So essentially what that meant is we would partner with a sports club. We would deliver the education. They would deliver the sports side of things. It was my job to work with the clubs to make sure they were happy and manage my staff. I did that for 2 years, and then I went on to what's called head of employability. So you can see from this already, it's a very squiggly path, and I really want to get that across, that there is no such thing as a linear path in your career. And for me, that would be a very boring career.
Yeah, agreed.
Because you're playing it safe. For me, I did what I enjoyed at the time, what I was passionate about, and it led me to where I am now, essentially.
No, completely agree. I think if you've got a career progression and you just do that, it's a bit dull, isn't it? Like, where's the life experience?
Boring.
Yeah,
and look,
boring.
that is good for some people, and if they're happy with that, that's brilliant, but it's not for me.
No,
As
not
you
for me
can
either.
tell,
No, I like a squiggly path. Also, it makes much more interesting to talk to people about what they've done, doesn't it? If you've always done the same thing, it's a bit boring.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we've got a question. So, if someone was interested in a role similar to yours, what qualifications or skills do you think are important?
That is a really good question, because I'm actually recruiting at the moment, and we get some really diverse applications. If I was honest, would I say a degree was 100% necessary? No. So for me, I would say, in terms of role of mine, you need a combination between good knowledge of the education sector, and that can be anything from teaching to managing to a receptionist to a careers advisor within that. So you need your experience of the education sector for one side, but you also need your commercial side. So how you've been working with businesses to help support young people in education. So are you bringing businesses in to talk to students? Are you liaising with businesses to see what value they can add to students? So in terms of qualifications, I'd say qualifications would be quite broad. My focus would be more on experience. In terms of skills, if I'm putting it out there, I would say personality for me is huge. Lots of people have the very same skill set to a degree.
Yeah.
So for me, in terms of skills, I would want a growth mindset. I would want a solution focused mindset. I really would, because it's very easy to blame. It's a lot harder to look at actually what's your solution. What else? I'd like to see people that are passionate, because if you're not passionate, what's the point? And that for me is really key. If you're not, listen to that again, if you're not passionate, there's no point. And you need to be energetic. You can see I've got energy here, there, and everywhere. And when I get going, I get really handsy, because ultimately people are working with us, yes, to do with Speakers for Schools, but first and foremost, that's, what's the word I'm looking for? That perception comes from the person you talk to. So you essentially, you're not buying the company per se. You are.
No, they're buying into you.
Yeah, exactly. So skills, passion, enthusiasm, and for me, resilience is so important. So
what
I
does
would say
resilience mean for you? What does that mean to you?
resilience means going through hard times and coming out the other, going through hard times, recognizing that it's not okay. It's okay to not be okay at some point, but it's going through hard times and really growing from those hard times. So for me, some of the most traumatic experiences in my life. So my dad was, I'm happy to share this. If anyone's uncomfortable, by the way, I'm just going to say, if anyone's uncomfortable, please feel free to kind of switch off. My dad was an alcoholic. He died when I was 20, having had a really serious car crash when I was in year 8 at school, and never really recovered from that. My cousin was an alcoholic as well. So for me, well, my dad died, and then my grandma died 2 weeks after. For me, within that gave me tremendous resilience, and I am very grateful for those. So it's, yes, you will go through bad things. Everyone will go through bad things, but it's what happens on the other side. But also recognizing, yeah, it's really okay, because I do it. I get sad, I get down, I get upset at times, but it's acknowledging that and not getting stuck to that. So that for me is, and I will come to that question because I've just seen it, that for me is my definition of resilience. Because
I think that's a good description as well. It's how do you overcome what life throws at you and keep going, going.
Precisely, because you are going to get stuff thrown at you, but be really grateful for those.
Yeah. And so the question below about so you've mentioned a growth mindset. I was going to come on to that. So what does that mean for you as well, a growth mindset?
It means, Josie, it took me until I was about 28 to kind of get a growth mindset, if I'm being really honest. Because I mentioned about my third class degree. I was ashamed to show that, and I can tell you where it is. My degree is, there's a little poof next to me, next to my desk, and that's where my degree certificate is, because I was so fixed in my mindset. So a fixed mindset is essentially thinking, so there's a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. A fixed mindset is thinking you can't control yourself and what's happened to you. So you think, oh, nothing will ever be different. I can't do this. I can't do that. So a fixed mindset is probably ingrained in negativity. A growth mindset is realizing essentially that your brain and your mind is like your body. And we forget this. We forget this a lot. So if you want to get fitter, what do you do? If you want to grow physically, what do? You go for a walk. You do rollerblading, Nordic hiking. You go to the gym. You swim. You play hockey. You play football. You play rugby. So you want to grow your body. You want to improve your body. But we forget about our mind. So a growth mindset for me is working on your brain and realizing that your brain is malleable. So the more you kind of feed your brain, the easier it will be to kind of really improve yourself as an individual. And I think that is so key. And it took me so long to realize that. Fixed is essentially saying what you've had when you were 16, 17, you cannot change. A growth mindset is realizing that you are learning all the time. So for me, I read and journal daily. So I have 2 books that I read 15 minutes a day. 15 minutes a day. And that compounds in terms of effect. So a compounding effect is essentially when you see something go like this, and grow and grow and grow. And the more you do it, it just grows up like that. So the easiest example to use is domino. If you've got a domino that's kind of 2 inches high, that domino can knock over another domino twice its height, which knocks over another twice its height. One domino, after 17 dominoes, can knock over something the size of an Eiffel Tower. So that's essentially compounding. And I think that's fascinating because for me, what we get as a society, and sorry for going on, you can tell when I get quite passionate, we get fixated on what is, I suppose, that we can get everything straight away.
Yeah.
And we have to do loads. We don't. If you do the ordinary consistently, you get extraordinary results. And then another one that I really like, and this works especially for growth mindset, do no more than X and no less than Y. Because we get caught. What do? We try and do too much too early. Diets, we try and do too much too early. Fitness, we try and do too much too early. What happens? We do it for a bit, then get bored, then get demotivated. If you do the little consistently, you change yourself and you'll change the world to a degree.
That's a nice little motto. Doing little to change yourself, to change the world.
It's so simple, and it's just as easy to do, but at the same time, it's just as easy not to do. People look at me like, Ian, why do you want to read for half an hour? It's not going to change anything. Well, 5 years I've been doing it. I'm nearly up to 100 books now.
Yeah. I got told, not suggesting that people do this, but I got told once that, on average, most people spend at least 10 minutes a day in the toilet. So if you have a book in the toilet, you can get through a book really quickly just by sitting on the loo. And actually, it's a really good point. You do things where you do them every day, and you could be reading or listening to a podcast or whatever it is to improve yourself. So yeah, it's easy to fit things in.
And it's those little things, isn't it, that make the difference.
So I was just going to ask, because we haven't got very much longer left, actually, Ian. I want to ask a little bit about work experience. So the work experience opportunities that, you put on for young people.
Yep.
Why do you think they're valuable? Why do you think actually having the opportunity from, 14 onwards to get tasters of the world of work is actually really important?
Because I think it gives you a real good idea, simply and easily, of actually an idea of lots of different industries that you wouldn't necessarily in your school or college have access to. And that's not me being disparaging to a college or a school. Your careers advisor or your form tutor or your teacher can only do so much. So what this gives and what this allows you to do is we normally have about 200 live opportunities a week out. So it allows you to go and experience for free lots of different companies and get more information on them to think, actually, you know what? I might want to try that industry. I might want to do this. I might do this. The more information you have, the more informed choices you can make, and the more it will help you in terms of moving yourself forward. And you might get to a point where you think, actually, I wanted to do this. Then you do work experience opportunities. Think, actually, I might want to try this. So the more options you have, the better it is for you. Forget about me, the better it is for you.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. We are actually running out of time here. So I don't know if I've got any other particular questions, but maybe what is it that keeps you going in your job? What is it day to day that makes you want to do this role and makes you so passionate about, clearly passionate as well about this role? But what is it? Like, not too many words, try and keep it short, but you know, what is it that makes you passionate, Ian?
I get to do this. with schools, networks, and businesses, and tell them, all three people, about what we produce, which in my mind is a fantastic service. I was at school, we mentioned, I'll do this very quickly. At school, I had a fixed mindset. Don't ask for help, that's a weakness. If I don't do something right first time, that's a weakness. And that I had to be perfect every time, when in fact it's completely opposite. For me, I get to do that and give other people the opportunity that I didn't give myself. And if I can do that and positively impact one person, you know what? That's a brilliant job to have.
Yeah, it's a good reason to get out of bed. It is. Okay, well, Ian, all I can say is thank you. You've given us some nice little snippets there. We might have to edit them down and put them somewhere, because there's a few little nuggets of your beautiful truths in there. So thank you very much for coming on. I'm hoping lots of people will watch this back, hoping you get some nice applications for your jobs as well. Yeah, fingers crossed. And there'll be new people for us to meet that way as well, because I love meeting new people. But yeah.
Anything anybody needs, just Josie, you've got my email, so I'm more than happy to share that. But look, thank you very much for hosting. Thank you for your time, and thank you for everybody else in the virtual land for coming along and asking the questions. Much appreciated.
Yes, thank you very much, Ian. Appreciated. Okay, so that was Ian Cooper. So thank you anybody who watched, thank you everybody who answered questions, and also thank you to Kaylee in the background for me. We also have one more Careers and Coffee before half term, so it's everything about agriculture. So you might have thought agriculture was getting up early in the morning, ploughing fields, milking cows, and kind of being done with it, but actually agriculture isn't like that anymore. So tune in on Thursday, and ask all your questions about agriculture. So thanks, guys, and we'll see you on Thursday.